The gunshot echoed across the empty parking lot behind the diner, just as the neon "Open 24 Hours" sign flickered twice and went dark. Tyler Brennan didn't realize he was the one holding the gun until the smell of burnt powder reached his nose and the man in front of him collapsed against the dented hood of the pickup truck. The body slid slowly down the metal, leaving a dark smear behind. Tyler's hands trembled so badly the pistol clattered to the asphalt. "Oh God," he whispered, staring at the man's unmoving chest. A moment earlier they had just been arguing. Now the silence felt like it had swallowed the whole world. Somewhere down the highway, a semi roared past, its headlights briefly washing across the parking lot and illuminating the scene like a crime photo. Tyler stepped back, breathing hard. "I didn't mean to." His voice trailed off. The man on the ground was Owen Hartley, the town's deputy sheriff. Tyler had known him since he was 12 years old. Owen had taught him how to throw a baseball during a summer league game. Now Owen's eyes were open, but empty. Tyler's brain refused to accept what had just happened. 30 minutes earlier, Tyler had been inside the diner arguing with his sister about their father's medical bills. Life had been normal. Now everything was broken. The back door of the diner burst open, and a waitress stepped out with a trash bag. She froze when she saw the body. The bag slipped from her hands. "Jesus Christ," she gasped. Tyler's stomach dropped. His instincts screamed to run. Instead, he stood there, rooted to the pavement like a man already buried. The waitress backed away slowly. "Tyler, what did you do?" Sirens began to howl somewhere in the distance, faint at first, but getting closer. Tyler finally moved. He grabbed the gun from the ground without thinking and staggered toward his truck. The engine roared to life. Gravel sprayed behind the tires as he peeled out of the lot and disappeared into the dark highway that cut through the rural outskirts of Redwater County, Missouri. 10 minutes later, Tyler was driving too fast down County Road 14, knuckles white on the steering wheel. His mind replayed the moment again and again. Owen's voice shouting, the gun between them, the accidental trigger pull. Tyler slammed his fist against the steering wheel. Damn it. He had never even fired a gun at a person before tonight. The pistol belonged to Owen. Tyler had grabbed it during the argument, trying to scare him, trying to force him to listen. Now Owen was dead. Tyler slowed the truck when he reached the edge of town. Redwater was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody. A sheriff dying here would explode like a bomb. Tyler drove past the gas station, the closed hardware store, and the dim yellow lights of the Baptist church. Every building looked suddenly unfamiliar, like the town had turned into a stranger overnight. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit up with the name, Lila. Tyler hesitated before answering. "Tyler?" his sister said the moment he picked up. Her voice sounded tense. "Where are you?" the diner called. They said something happened. Tyler swallowed hard. "Lila, listen to me. I need you to stay calm." Silence. Then she whispered, "What did you do?" He exhaled slowly. "Owen's dead." The words sounded unreal. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Another long pause followed. Tyler could almost hear her mind racing through possibilities, trying to reject the one she didn't want to accept. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said finally. Tyler kept driving while he spoke, explaining the argument in broken fragments. Owen had been investigating their father's old construction company for fraud tied to a county contract. Tyler had tried to convince him the paperwork mistakes weren't criminal. Owen had accused their father of laundering money through shell subcontractors. The conversation escalated. Owen threatened to arrest their father in the morning. Tyler panicked. The gun came out. Then the shot. When Tyler finished, Leela didn't speak for several seconds. Finally, she said, "You need to turn yourself in." Tyler's grip tightened on the wheel. "If I do that, Dad goes down too." Owen was already building a case. "Tyler, you killed a deputy. It was an accident. The law won't care." Tyler slowed the truck and pulled onto the shoulder, near an abandoned grain silo. The engine idled while he stared into the dark fields. "If Dad gets arrested right now," Tyler said quietly, "he won't survive prison. The cancer alone will kill him." Lila's breathing grew shaky. "Then what are you saying?" Tyler hesitated before answering. "I'm saying Owen was wrong. He was digging in the wrong direction." "That's not the point. It is now." Leela sounded horrified. "Tyler, are you thinking about running?" He didn't answer. She whispered, "You can't disappear. Not from here. They'll hunt you." Tyler rubbed his forehead. His thoughts felt scattered. But one thing was painfully clear. If he surrendered tonight, the investigation would destroy his entire family before they could even explain themselves. "I just need time," he said. "Time to figure out what Owen found." "You're not a detective." "No. But Owen was." Tyler stared at the gun lying on the passenger seat and now his investigation just became my problem. At the Redwater County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Daniel Mercer stared at the crime scene photos spread across his desk. Owen Hartley's body lay under the harsh light of a parking lot lamp, the blood stain clearly visible against the truck's white paint. Deputy Carla Ruiz stood nearby with her arms crossed. "Witness says Tyler Brennan drove off," she said. Mercer leaned back in his chair. "Tyler Brennan?" He rubbed his jaw slowly. "That boy used to mow my lawn. He's 28 now. Still feels strange hearing his name in a homicide report." Carla pointed to the photo of the pistol. "Weapon registered to Owen." Mercer studied the evidence carefully. Something about the scene bothered him, not the shooting itself, the aftermath. "Did the witness say anything about a fight?" "Just yelling," Mercer sighed. "Call State Patrol. Tell them to block the highways." Carla nodded. "You think Brennan planned it?" Mercer shook his head slowly. "I think something scared him enough to pull a trigger." Meanwhile, Tyler drove deeper into the countryside, headlights slicing through the darkness. His thoughts drifted back to the argument. Owen hadn't looked angry during their confrontation. He looked disappointed. That detail hurt the most. Owen had said one thing before the shot, one sentence Tyler couldn't stop hearing. "Your father's not the man you think he is." Tyler's chest tightened. He had spent his whole life believing their dad was an honest contractor who simply got unlucky with business deals. But Owen had been investigating for months. What if he wasn't wrong? Tyler's phone buzzed again. "Lila." He answered immediately. "You need to come home," she said. "Dad's awake." Tyler's heart skipped. He shouldn't even be out of bed. He heard the police scanner. Tyler closed his eyes. "Does he know?" "He knows Owen's dead. And he knows they're looking for you." Tyler swallowed hard. "What did he say?" Leela hesitated. "He said, 'You need to bring Owen's files.'" Tyler frowned. "What files?" "He thinks Owen found something. Obviously." Lila lowered her voice. "Tyler." Dad sounded scared. That word echoed in Tyler's head. Their father had always been calm, even during the worst financial disasters. Fear didn't fit him. Tyler turned the truck around slowly. "I'm coming home." 20 minutes later, he pulled into the gravel driveway of the old Brennan house. The farmhouse sat at the edge of a dying cornfield, its porch light glowing faintly. Lila was waiting outside with her arms wrapped around herself. Tyler stepped out of the truck. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Finally, she walked up and hugged him tightly. "Tell me you're okay," she whispered. Tyler couldn't answer. Inside the house, their father lay on the living room couch, wrapped in blankets. His skin looked pale and thin. Chemotherapy had taken most of his strength, but his eyes were sharp. "Tyler," he said quietly. "Come here." Tyler stepped closer. The older man studied his face for a long moment. "Did you really shoot Owen?" Tyler nodded slowly. Their father closed his eyes. "Then we're out of time." Lila frowned. "Out of time for what?" The old man gestured weakly toward the bookshelf across the room. "There's a box behind the photo albums. Bring it." Tyler retrieved the box and opened it on the coffee table. Inside were folders filled with documents and a flash drive. Tyler looked confused. "What is this?" Their father exhaled slowly. "Proof. Proof of what?" The old man's voice trembled slightly. "Proof that Owen wasn't investigating me." Tyler froze. "What?" The old man met his son's eyes. "He was investigating the sheriff." Silence filled the room like a pressure wave. Lila whispered, "Sheriff Mercer?" Their father nodded faintly. "Owen came to me 3 weeks ago. He thought Mercer was running a kickback scheme through county construction contracts." Tyler stared at the documents. "Then why accuse you?" "Because Mercer was using my company as the scapegoat." Tyler felt the ground shift under him. "So Owen wasn't trying to arrest you?" "No." The realization hit like a hammer. Tyler had killed the one man who might have exposed the real corruption in the county. Lila's voice cracked. "What do we do now?" Their father looked at Tyler with a tired expression. "Now you finish what Owen started." Tyler felt the weight of the flash drive in his hand. Outside, distant sirens echoed across the fields. The search for him had already begun, and suddenly Tyler understood something terrifying. If Owen had been close to exposing Sheriff Mercer, then Mercer would do anything to bury the truth, including making sure Tyler Brennan never told his side of the story. Tyler Brennan never told his side of the story. Tyler stood frozen in the middle of the living room, the flash drive resting in his palm like something alive, something hot. He looked from the drive to the folders spread across the coffee table, then to his father, whose breathing had turned thin and uneven from the effort of saying so much at once. "Why didn't you tell us?" Tyler asked. It came out harsher than he intended. His father did not flinch. "Because I didn't know how deep it went," he said. And because once Owen came to me, I understood something that made me sick. If Mercer knew Owen had talked to me, he'd come after the family. I thought I had more time to figure out what to do. Leela stared at the papers without touching them. You let Tyler think you were guilty. I let both of you think that, their father said. I was trying to protect you. Tyler laughed once, bitter and low. That worked out great. The old man closed his eyes for a second. I know. Outside, gravel crunched under tires somewhere down the road. All three of them went still. Lila crossed quickly to the front window and peeled back the curtain with 2 fingers. No headlights yet, she whispered. Could be on the next property. Tyler dropped into the armchair by the couch and began flipping through the folders, county bids, payment transfers, copies of permits, signatures. There were names he knew, men who sat on church boards and coached Little League and slapped backs at county fairs. Mercer's name did not appear directly on most of it. That was the point, Tyler realized. The sheriff had built layers between himself and the money. Owen must have spent months following side roads just to get close to the center. Tyler plugged the flash drive into the old laptop on the end table. The screen glowed weakly to life. Several folders appeared. Audio files. Scanned invoices. A document labeled, "If anything happens to me." Tyler's mouth went dry. He clicked it. The file opened into a typed statement with Owen's name and badge number at the top. It was not complete evidence. It was a map. Owen laid out his suspicions in careful detail, naming Mercer, County Commissioner Hal Ross, and a developer from Street Lewis who had been winning overvalued bridge and road contracts for 4 years. Payments moved through shell subcontractors. Missing materials were billed anyway. Public safety inspections were signed off without completion. When people started asking questions, accidents happened, or audits stalled, or witnesses changed their stories. Owen wrote that he believed there was enough for a state-level investigation if somebody got the material to the right hands before Mercer buried it. At the end of the document was one final paragraph. If you are reading this, either I was too slow, or I trusted the wrong people. If Tyler Brennan is involved in whatever happened, he's not the center of this. He's standing in the blast zone. Tyler stared at those lines until they blurred. Lila came over behind him and read in silence. Their father turned his head slowly toward them. What did Owen say? Tyler swallowed. He said, I'm not the center of it. Then don't act like you are, the old man said. That's how Mercer wins. He gets you thinking only about your guilt and your fear. He turns you into a cornered animal. Tyler looked up sharply. I killed a deputy. Yes, his father said, and you're going to carry that the rest of your life. But if you let that be the whole story tonight, then Owen dies for nothing. Tyler wanted to argue. He wanted to say there was no version of this where he was anything but a man who had panicked and pulled a trigger. But there was something in his father's voice that kept him still. Not forgiveness, not comfort, just brutal clarity. Lila pulled her phone from her pocket. We call the Missouri State Highway Patrol, or the state investigators. Somebody outside the county. Tyler shook his head immediately. Mercer will hear the call before we finish dialing. Then what? She demanded. We sit here until his deputies kick in the door? Tyler thought of Owen's note. Map, not evidence. Enough to suspect, not enough to survive the wrong hands. We need one person Mercer can't control, he said. Lila crossed her arms. Who? Tyler looked at the laptop. Nora Whitfield. Lila blinked. The reporter? She works at the Redwater Register. That paper barely covers bake sales and varsity football. She used to work in Kansas City, Tyler said. She came back after her divorce. Owen talked to her once, last fall, about the county jail budget story. I saw them at the diner. Lila looked uncertain. A reporter isn't the police. Exactly, Tyler said. Mercer can lean on cops. He can lean on county people. But if this gets printed, or even sent outside town by somebody already suspicious, he loses control. Their father nodded faintly. Nora's father hated Mercer. Tyler glanced over. You know her? Everybody over 50 in this county knows everybody, he said. Her father was a judge, clean man. Mercer used to smile at him and curse him in private. Another set of headlights drifted across the front windows from the road, then passed. Lila exhaled slowly. Okay, suppose we trust her. How do we get to her? Tyler considered the problem. Nora lived in a second-floor apartment above the old pharmacy downtown. Going there now would be suicide. Mercer would have officers watching the main roads, the courthouse square, the sheriff's office, maybe even the hospital, if they thought Tyler might show up to see somebody or treat an injury. Not tonight, Tyler said. Before dawn. Back roads, and we don't all go. Lila stared at him. You think I'm letting you disappear again? You stay with Dad. No. Lila. No. she said. Louder now. You already ran once tonight. You don't get to go ghost again while I sit here wondering if the next knock means you're dead. Tyler stood. Listen to me. Mercer knows I'm the weak point. He'll expect me to do something stupid and emotional. He won't be watching you the same way. Lila's eyes hardened. That's because I'm the daughter who stayed respectable. Tyler winced. Their father opened his mouth to speak, then stopped, exhausted. The old bitterness between the siblings flared with no warning, because that was how family worked. Nothing stayed buried when fear entered the room. Tyler said, That's not what I meant. You never have to mean it, Lila snapped. It still lands. She turned away, hugging herself. You think because I teach 4th grade and pay bills on time, that I don't know how ugly people get around here. Tyler softened his voice. I know you do. No, you don't. She faced him again, eyes wet now, angry enough to shake. You were gone half of Mom's last year. You were out in Tulsa, then Springfield, then God knows where, chasing contracting jobs and pretending you weren't just running from this house. I stayed here. I drove Dad to appointments. I sat with Mom while she forgot my name for 10 minutes at a time, and then cried because she knew she was forgetting things. I watched Mercer come to the funeral and hold Dad's shoulder like he was family, and I knew he liked how helpless we looked. Tyler said nothing. There was nothing useful to say. The truth had too much edge. Lila wiped her face angrily. So don't tell me what Mercer will or won't watch. He watches everybody. The room went quiet except for the rattle of the old heating vent. Their father looked at both of them with a hollow sadness that made Tyler feel suddenly like a teenager again. Standing in the kitchen after some stupid fight neither of them could remember the point of. I need the two of you to stop bleeding on each other, he said softly. We do not have the luxury. Lila sank into a chair. Tyler sat back down. He opened one of the audio files from the drive. Owen's voice crackled through the laptop speakers. Calm, measured, tired. He was dictating notes after an interview with a gravel supplier, who claimed county invoices showed double orders that were never delivered. The supplier sounded scared on the recording, and kept asking whether the sheriff knew they were talking. Tyler shut the file off halfway through. Hearing Owen alive was worse than seeing the words on the screen. He could still picture the expression on Owen's face in the parking lot. Not rage, urgency, as if he had been trying to stop Tyler from stepping into something bigger than a criminal charge, something he could not yet see. He was trying to tell me, Tyler said quietly. Lila looked over. What? At the diner. He kept saying, Listen to me. He wasn't trying to arrest Dad. He was trying to warn me. His father's gaze dropped to the floor. No one denied it. Tyler pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. For a few seconds, the darkness behind them pulsed red and gold. He thought he might vomit. Instead, he sat there and let the shame move through him like a fever. I killed the only honest cop left in this county, he said. Maybe, his father replied. Or maybe you killed one honest man, and now the test is whether you let them bury the truth with him. Tyler dropped his hands. You really know how to comfort a person. I'm dying, the old man said. I don't have time to lie pretty. Sometime after 1 a.m, they made a plan. At 4:30, before the town fully woke, Lila would drive the old church van from the barn instead of her usual sedan. Tyler would ride in the back, beneath a tarp and toolboxes, until they got close enough to Nora Whitfield's building to move on foot through the alley. Their father would stay home with the landline unplugged and the porch lights off. If deputies came, he would tell them Tyler had shown up, admitted what happened, and run again before anyone could stop him. It was not a good plan. It was the only one they had. At 2:30, Tyler stepped out onto the back porch to breathe. The cold hit him hard. The field behind the house shimmered silver under a thin moon. He heard the screen door behind him and knew before he turned that it was Lila. She stood beside him in their mother's oversized cardigan, arms crossed against the chill. For a minute, they just listened to the wind move through the dead stalks. I'm sorry, Tyler said finally. She stared into the darkness. For which part? Take your pick. That got a small, exhausted laugh out of her. It vanished quickly. Did you love Owen? She asked. Tyler frowned. What? Not like that. She looked at him now. I mean, did he matter to you? Or was he just another deputy who happened to know us? Tyler leaned on the porch rail. He thought about summers at the river when Owen was 15, and Tyler was a kid tagging along after the older boys. Owen had once dragged him out of the mud after Tyler got his foot stuck near the bank. Later, as adults, they had drifted into that small-town half-friendship where you don't call each other, but you still trust the look in the other person's eye. Yeah, Tyler said. He mattered. Leela nodded, as though she needed that answer for some private reason. He came to school 2 months ago, she said. Career day. The kids loved him. He spent 10 minutes explaining that real police work wasn't about car chases. It was mostly paperwork and judgment and trying to catch people before they wrecked their lives. Tyler's throat tightened. That sounds like him. Leela rubbed her eyes. I keep thinking how stupid it is that one bad minute can erase every good thing a person did. Tyler almost said, it doesn't erase it, but that was the kind of sentence people said because they were desperate, not because it fixed anything. Instead, he said, it changes the shape of it. She nodded once. Yeah. He looked at her carefully. You ever think about leaving? Every week. Why don't you? She smiled without humor. Because then, who am I? There's this whole version of me that only exists here. The one who knows what Mrs. Harlan buys when she's too embarrassed to make eye contact. The one who still remembers the exact smell of the elementary school gym during winter concerts. The one who knows which roads flood first in spring. She shrugged. I hate this town sometimes, but it's got my fingerprints all over it. Tyler understood that better than he wanted to. He had spent years leaving, only to discover that distance was not the same thing as escape. Back inside, he found his father awake again, staring at the ceiling. Tyler sat in the chair beside the couch. You should sleep, he said. You should turn yourself in, his father replied. Tyler huffed a tired laugh. There he is. The old man turned his head. Both things can be true. You can need to finish this, and you can need to answer for Owen. Tyler looked down at his hands. I know. Do you? Yeah. His father's voice softened. Then promise me something. Tyler looked up. What? Don't turn this into redemption. Tyler frowned. What does that mean? It means don't confuse doing the right thing now with earning back what happened in that parking lot. There is no trade. There is no balancing the books. If you go after Mercer, do it because it needs doing, not because you want a cleaner story about yourself. Tyler sat very still. The words slid in deeper than he expected, because they were true. Somewhere inside him, some desperate part had already started building fantasies of sacrifice, confession, exposure, maybe even death, as if enough pain could reshape what he had done. His father saw it immediately and crushed it. Okay, Tyler said. The old man closed his eyes again. Good. At 4:15, the house was a dim shell of shadows and quiet movement. Lila packed the flash drive, selected copies of the most damning documents, and Owen's written note into a canvas school tote. Tyler changed into darker clothes from the mudroom and left his phone smashed under the hammer in the garage. The sky outside was still black, but the edge of it had begun to pale. They eased the church van out from the barn without turning on the headlights until they reached the tree line. Tyler crouched in the back beneath a tarp that smelled like mildew and motor oil, hearing every rattle of the road through the metal floor. Lila drove slow on the farm roads, then cut through a feeder route behind the high school football field. Tyler peeked through a gap in the tarp as they passed the bleachers. For one absurd second, he remembered being 17, drunk on cheap beer under those same stands after a win, thinking life would eventually become simple if he was patient enough. Redwater's downtown appeared through the windshield in fragments, the courthouse dome dark against the early morning sky, the diner sign now off, the pharmacy building quiet above its striped awning. Lila stopped in the alley behind the row of shops. Go, she whispered. Tyler slid out. The cold bit through his jacket. He pulled the tote over his shoulder. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, don't, Lila said. Just go. Tyler crossed the alley and climbed the narrow metal staircase to the second-floor landing. Apartment 2B. He knocked once, then again, harder. No answer. He was about to try a third time when the chain rattled and the door opened 2 inches. Nora Whitfield stared at him through the gap, hair wild, an old University of Missouri sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder. Her eyes sharpened instantly. Tyler Brennan? I need 5 minutes. The entire county is looking for you. That's part of the problem. She started to shut the door. Tyler said, It's about Owen. That stopped her. A long beat passed. Then the chain slid free. She opened the door enough to let him in. The apartment smelled like coffee grounds and printer ink. Newspapers were stacked on a side table. A police scanner sat silent on the kitchen counter. Nora crossed her arms. Talk fast. Tyler set the tote on her table and spread the papers out with trembling hands. He watched her face as she read. Confusion first, then attention, then something colder. She picked up Owen's statement and read every line. Where did you get this? She asked. From my father. Why would your father have it? Tyler met her eyes. Because Owen trusted him. Nora let that settle. Did Owen trust you? Tyler's throat tightened. No. She looked at him for another second, then seemed to make some private calculation, and moved on. You understand this isn't enough on its own. I know. It's enough to get me buried in legal threats by noon. I know. It's enough to get you shot if Mercer decides you're a problem instead of a suspect. Tyler nodded. I know that too. Nora turned away and paced once to the sink, then back. Why me? Because Mercer can reach everyone else first. And maybe not me? Maybe not fast enough. Nora studied him. Did you kill Owen? The question landed with brutal directness. Tyler didn't look away. Yes, she inhaled slowly through her nose. On purpose? Tyler's answer came just as fast. No. Nora looked down at the files again. That matters morally. It may not matter legally. I know. You keep saying that. Because there's not much else I can say. For the first time, her expression softened just a fraction. Not toward forgiveness. Toward recognition. She had covered enough damage in small towns to know what a man looked like when the truth was too ugly to decorate. She lifted the flash drive. I can copy this, send it to 2 people outside the county, and make noise. Once I do, this stops being containable. Tyler said. That's the point. Nora nodded slowly. Then her scanner crackled alive on the counter, and Mercer's voice came through in clipped radio code, followed by another deputy reporting a sighting of the Brennan Church van near downtown. Nora and Tyler both went still. She looked toward the window. Your sister. Tyler moved before she finished the sentence. Nora grabbed his arm. If you run out there now, you're dead or arrested in 5 minutes. Tyler yanked free and went to the window anyway. From the narrow gap in the blinds, he saw 2 sheriff's cruisers turning into the alley below, their light bars off, moving quiet and deliberate. Lila's van was boxed in at the mouth of the alley, engine still running. Deputy Carla Ruiz stepped out with one hand on her holster. Lila had both hands on the wheel. Tyler's heart slammed against his ribs. Nora was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling this in to a contact in Jefferson City, she said. You need to decide right now whether you're a fugitive hiding in my apartment or a man ready to walk downstairs and change the whole shape of this story. Tyler looked from the alley to the tote on the table, Owen's note. Then he heard Mercer's cruiser pull up behind the others. The sheriff stepped out slowly, hat low, posture calm, like a man arriving at church rather than a trap. Tyler knew with sudden clarity that Mercer had wanted this. Not just the arrest, the scene, the optics. Tyler Brennan flushed out at dawn, while his schoolteacher sister helped him run. It would lock the narrative in place before any document ever saw daylight. Nora spoke quietly behind him. They don't know you're up here yet. Tyler exhaled once, shaky and thin. Then let's not waste that. Nora moved faster than Tyler expected. She grabbed the flash drive, shoved it into her laptop, and began firing off emails with attachments while her other hand dialed a number from memory. Pick up, she muttered. Pick up, you insufferable bastard. Tyler stayed at the window. Below, Mercer approached the driver's side of the van with the casual patience of a man who knew the ending before anyone else had gotten the script. Leela rolled the window down 2 inches. Carla Ruiz stood back near the rear doors, eyes scanning the alley walls and fire escapes. Tyler realized she was the one to worry about. Mercer liked control. Carla liked details. She was the one who might look up. Nora got someone on the line. Gavin, listen carefully, she said. I'm sending you a packet right now. Read it before you call me reckless. If anything happens to me or this story goes sideways, you send it straight to the State Attorney General's Public Corruption Unit and every Metro desk contact you still trust. She listened, then cut him off. No, not later, now. And do not say this over speaker. Tyler heard Mercer below, voice carrying just enough to reach the second-floor windows. Lila, I'm going to ask you once. Is your brother in that van? Lila answered with a steadiness that made Tyler ache. No, Sheriff. Mercer took off his hat, ran a hand over his hair, then put it back on. It was a small-town performance, meant to signal reluctant decency. I don't want to make this uglier than it already is, he said. A deputy is dead. Your brother is scared. I understand that. But if you help him run, you make things worse for everybody. Tyler's jaw tightened. Nora ended the call and started another. State House legal contact, she murmured. Then a TV producer. Then maybe a federal source if this starts smelling big enough. Tyler looked back. You really think this will work? She didn't stop typing. No. She glanced at him. I think work is something people say when they mean guaranteed. This isn't that. This is leverage, speed, and witnesses. Down in the alley, Carla moved toward the back of the van. Tyler's pulse kicked. Leela must have seen it too because she opened her door and stepped out just enough to block Carla's path. Can I ask what this is based on? She said. Do you have a warrant? Carla looked at Mercer. Mercer gave the faintest shrug, like a man permitting a child her question. Reasonable suspicion, he said. Vehicle tied to a homicide suspect. Lila's chin lifted. Because I drove downtown at sunrise? Tyler felt something crack open inside him. Lila had spent years learning how to speak softly enough that people underestimated the steel under it. Mercer smiled, but it was all teeth. Because your brother called you from a murder scene. Nora was recording now, phone angled carefully through the blinds. That'll be useful later, she whispered. He just established knowledge of a call he hasn't disclosed publicly. Tyler barely heard her. He was thinking about the shape of the next 5 minutes. If Carla opened the van and found nothing, Mercer would start widening the perimeter. If Carla looked up, the apartment would be next. If Tyler stayed hidden, Lila would take the hit for aiding him. If he surrendered in the wrong way, Mercer would seal the story and bury the files under the noise of his confession. He turned toward Nora. How fast can those emails land? Some already have. Time-stamped? Yes. Can you print the sent page? She nodded. Why? Because if I go down there, I need Mercer to know the dam's already cracked. Nora stared at him for half a second, then seemed to understand. She hit print on the old machine by the kitchen wall. It whined to life. In the alley, Carla had reached for the back handle of the van. Lila stepped in front of it. Deputy, I said, do you have a warrant? Carla's expression shifted, just briefly, from procedural focus to something more human. Miss Brennan, move aside. No. Mercer's voice hardened by 1 degree. Lila. Tyler made his choice. He snatched the printout from the machine before the ink had dried and shoved it into his jacket. Keep sending everything, he told Nora. And if I don't get to say it downstairs, you publish Owen's whole statement. I was going to anyway. He almost smiled. Instead, he headed for the door. Nora caught his sleeve. Tyler. He turned. Do not improvise heroically, she said. Men do that when they run out of options, and half the time it's just vanity with blood on it. Tyler looked at her, then gave a tired nod. I'll try to be boring. He slipped out into the stairwell and started down. The metal steps rang under his boots before he reached the landing. Every head in the alley snapped up. Carla drew instantly. Mercer stepped back 2 paces, hand settling on his sidearm but not drawing yet. Lila went pale. Tyler kept one hand raised and the other away from his body. Easy, he called. I'm unarmed. Mercer's eyes narrowed. Tyler Brennan. That's right. Tyler descended the rest of the staircase slowly until he stood on the cracked pavement between the pharmacy door and the van. Carla kept her weapon trained on his chest. Tyler looked at Lila first. You okay? She stared at him, like she wanted to slap him and hug him in the same motion. No, she said. Great, he said softly. Same. Mercer recovered his public voice. Tyler, put your hands behind your head and kneel. Tyler did not move. Before I do that, I want it on record that I brought evidence tied to Deputy Hartley's investigation to a reporter outside your chain of command. Mercer's expression did not change, but the stillness around his eyes did. This is not the place for speeches. No, Tyler said. It's the place for witnesses. Nora had come to the upstairs window now, visible enough to matter. A few morning pedestrians had stopped at the far end of the street, sensing trouble the way people in small towns always did. Behind one diner window, a cook stood frozen with a coffee pot in hand. Mercer followed Tyler's gaze and seemed to realize the scene was slipping beyond the neat boundaries he had planned. You're in shock, Mercer said. You've been fed a story by a dying man and a gossip with a laptop. Tyler reached slowly into his jacket. Carla shouted, Don't. Tyler froze. Paper, he said. 1 sheet. Mercer nodded once to Carla, eyes never leaving Tyler. Tyler pulled out the printout and held it up. Timestamps, he said. Emails sent outside the county before I came downstairs. He looked directly at Mercer. So if I get suicided in a holding cell or shot reaching for something I'm not holding, it's not going to contain what Owen found. Mercer smiled then, but the warmth was gone. You've been watching too much television, Tyler said. Maybe Owen didn't. Something passed across Mercer's face. Not fear exactly, recognition. It was enough. Carla glanced at the sheriff, and Tyler saw it happen. One deputy's certainty took a microscopic step backward. She had worked enough scenes to know when a suspect was babbling and when a man had found the one sentence that mattered. Put him in cuffs, Mercer said. Carla holstered and moved in carefully. Tyler complied, letting her wrench his hands behind his back. The cuffs bit hard. Lila said, Sheriff, I want a lawyer present if you question him. Mercer did not look at her. He'll get due process. Tyler laughed once. That's rich. Mercer stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Tyler and Carla could hear. Whatever game you think you're playing, son, it ends when facts hit daylight. You ran from a body. Tyler met his gaze. Did you kill the county inspector too? Carla's hand paused on Tyler's arm. Mercer's eyes flicked, just once. There it was. Tyler had found the live wire without even knowing if he was right. One of Owen's notes had mentioned a county bridge inspector killed in a one-car accident 18 months earlier, after raising concerns about missing materials. Tyler had thrown the name out blind. Mercer's control slipped for half a heartbeat. Then he smiled again. Get him in the cruiser. Carla guided Tyler toward the back seat. As she opened the door, she murmured so quietly, Tyler almost missed it. What, Inspector? Tyler looked at her. He couldn't read the question fully. Curiosity? Doubt? Trap? Ask Owen's files, he whispered back. She shoved him into the car harder than necessary, loud enough to cover the exchange. The door slammed. Through the cruiser window, Tyler watched Mercer speak to Lila. He could not hear the words. Lila folded her arms and said something clipped. Mercer leaned in close. She did not step back. Tyler closed his eyes for 1 second and let himself feel the raw fear of not being able to protect her. Then he opened them again because protection had become a fantasy somewhere around the first gunshot. Across the street, more people had gathered. A mechanic from the gas station, 2 women in scrubs on their way to the hospital, a retired farmer Tyler recognized from church. Every face carried some version of the same expression. Appetite mixed with concern. Shock braided with the strange civic electricity of public scandal. Small towns treated drama like weather. Everybody felt it. Nobody admitted how much they watched. The cruiser started moving. Carla drove. Mercer followed in his own vehicle. Tyler sat upright in the back, wrists aching, staring out at the square as they passed the courthouse lawn with its war memorial and patchy grass. This place had taught him almost everything he understood about loyalty, and now he could not tell where loyalty ended and silence began. At the sheriff's office, Carla led him through a side entrance, instead of the front lobby. That choice mattered too. Less spectacle, fewer ears. She took him to an interview room with beige walls and a scarred metal table. Sit, she said. Tyler sat. She removed one cuff from the chain and looped it through a bolt under the table. Then she stood there for a second longer than necessary. The county inspector, she said finally. Name. Tyler studied her. Why? Because if you're baiting Mercer, I'd rather know before I step on the line. Tyler decided in that moment that trust now was less about certainty than direction. Ben Keller, he said. Owen had notes saying Keller flagged structural shortages on the Route 9 bridge project before he died. Carla's face gave almost nothing away. You saw this yourself? On a drive, Owen left. He connected Keller to missing materials and fake invoices. Carla nodded once, as if cataloging it somewhere private. Don't mistake caution for loyalty, she said. Mercer's my boss. He's also not my priest. Then she left. Tyler sat alone for what felt like an hour, though it was probably 20 minutes. In the silence, the fluorescent light buzzed overhead, and the room seemed to shrink. This was where the weight of Owen's death returned without distraction. Not in the alley, not in the rush of strategy, but here, in a locked room with nothing to do but remember. Tyler saw the whole thing again, slower this time. Owen stepping forward, Tyler backing up against the truck, the gun in his hand not feeling real. Owen saying, "Put it down and let me explain." Tyler shouting over him, hearing threat where there had been warning. Then the stupid animal twitch in his hand. He swallowed hard against rising nausea. He had kept moving all night, partly because stillness meant this. It meant hearing the exact note of Owen's voice on the word Tyler right before the shot. The door opened. Mercer entered alone and sat across from him without a notepad, without a recorder in sight. That was its own statement. This was unofficial, unclean. Counsel? Tyler asked. Mercer folded his hands. You can wait for one. I will. Mercer nodded. Smart. He leaned back. But there's still a practical matter. Tyler said nothing. Mercer watched him with the patience of a man who had coaxed plenty of confessions in rooms like this. You don't look like a murderer to me, he said. You look like a son who got spun around by a desperate father. Tyler laughed softly. That line usually work on people? Sometimes truth sounds manipulative when you hear it from the wrong person. Tyler leaned forward as far as the cuff allowed. Did Owen confront you? Mercer's eyes did not move. Deputy Hartley was ambitious. He got ahead of his evidence. So yes. Mercer ignored that. What matters now is your sister. Tyler went still. Mercer's voice stayed gentle. Accessory after the fact. Obstruction. Harboring. She's a school teacher. You think the district keeps her while cameras circle a homicide case? Tyler felt rage rise hot and immediate. Mercer saw it and kept going. Your father doesn't have much time. You want his last month spent watching both children go under? Say what you came to say. Mercer nodded slowly. Give me the drive. Tyler smiled despite himself. Too late. Copies, then. Tell me who has them. No. Mercer studied him. You understand your situation. Manslaughter is one thing. A panicked shooting with a clean surrender after flight. Maybe there's a path through that. But if you tie yourself to lies and conspiracies, prosecutors lose patience. Tyler looked at the table. You know what Owen wrote about me? Mercer was silent. He wrote that I wasn't the center of this, that I was standing in the blast zone. Tyler met his gaze again. You've been counting on me to act like the center. Guilty, scared, selfish. Easy to steer. But the thing about blast zones is, they don't just hit one person. Mercer's jaw tightened by a fraction. A dead deputy would be disappointed to hear you using his words as camouflage. Tyler's voice dropped. He'd probably be more disappointed in the part where I shot him. Mercer leaned in. Finally. There he is. Tyler did not look away. That's the difference between you and me. I know exactly what I did. For the first time, Mercer's face hardened without disguise. You think pain makes you clean. It doesn't. It makes you useful to men like me because you get sentimental. You want this to mean something. He stood. It doesn't. It means you lost control in a parking lot, and now everyone you love is going to pay unless you stop flailing, Tyler said quietly. Ben Keller. Mercer paused at the door. Just that. Just the name. It landed. Mercer turned back with his public expression already rebuilt. Get some rest, he said, and left. 2 hours later, the story broke. Tyler knew before anyone told him, because the building changed. Phones started ringing in overlapping bursts. Boots moved faster in the hallway. Somebody cursed loudly near the dispatch desk. Then Carla opened the door with a paper cup of stale coffee and set it in front of him. You're on the internet, she said. Tyler blinked. That sentence used to sound less grim. Carla almost smiled. Whitfield pushed the packet to a Statehouse reporter, a street, Louis Station, and apparently one national legal blog that feeds bigger outlets when corruption stories smell strong. She slid a printout onto the table. Headline: Redwater Detch's death tied to allegations of county contract corruption. Nora had moved fast. Fast enough that even a thin first story could create public pressure. The article didn't clear Tyler. It did something more dangerous. It complicated him. It named Owen's off-book notes, referenced documents implicating county bid irregularities, and included the line that Tyler Brennan had surrendered after evidence was delivered to a local journalist. Mercer could survive accusations. What he hated was uncertainty he did not control. Tyler looked up at Carla. And the highway patrol just called. So did the Attorney General's office. Mercer's in his office pretending he invited all this. Tyler exhaled slowly. Carla crossed her arms. Before you get hopeful, understand something. A mess this size doesn't turn anybody innocent. It just spreads the damage around. I know. She gave him a long look. You really do keep saying that. Tyler stared at the article again. It's usually true. Carla tapped the paper. There's more. Whitfield included Keller. Tyler looked up sharply. The inspector? She found archived coverage of the crash and linked the date to missing material sign-offs, Owen noted. Carla lowered her voice. Mercer's angry. Not scared yet. Angry, Tyler said. What about Lila? Not here. He let her go. Relief hit so hard it almost hurt. Carla saw it and looked away, as if she preferred not to witness the softest parts of people's fear. Highway patrol investigators are on their way, she said. When they get here, this turns formal. Different room. Different questions. There will be lawyers. There will also be a very bad day for you. Tyler nodded. I'm not under the impression otherwise. Carla hesitated, then said, Was it really an accident? Tyler closed his eyes briefly. Yes. When he opened them, her expression had changed. Not to trust, to the harder thing. To the willingness to believe a sentence could be both true and insufficient. Okay, she said, and left him with the coffee and the article and the knowledge that the story had finally escaped the county line. Around noon, Leela came with a public defender candidate arranged through Nora's frantic networking, and an attorney from Columbia who had taken an interest the second the corruption angle became newsworthy. Tyler met with both. He gave a full statement about the shooting, about Owen's warnings, about the files, about Mercer's pressure in the interview room. Saying it out loud in a formal sequence made it feel even worse. There was no dramatic cleansing and confession, just precision. He had pointed a gun. He had panicked. He had ignored a man trying to make him listen. When he finished, Leela sat beside him in the consultation room and stared at the floor. You told it clean, she said. Tyler let out a bitter breath. That doesn't make it better. No, she said. But it matters. He looked at her. She looked exhausted, older than she had the day before, and somehow also more like herself than he had seen in years. Dad? He asked. Home. Angry. At me? At everybody. She folded her hands in her lap. He wants to see you, but they won't allow it today. Tyler nodded. How bad is it? Lila did not make him clarify. He's fading. The words sat between them. Tyler leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling tiles. All night he had moved as if there would be time later for grief, later for explanation, later for all the terrible ordinary things family says when the worst has already happened. Now later was shrinking. Lila touched his arm. Don't do that. Do what? Start deciding what kind of son you were. Tyler looked at her. She held his gaze. You always do that when you're scared. You turn your whole life into a verdict. Dad needs facts right now, not a eulogy from somebody still alive. Tyler swallowed against the tightness in his throat. You been saving that one? Since I was 19. He laughed despite himself, and for one brief second the room felt less like a processing chamber for disaster and more like the old version of them, the one that existed before bills and funerals and resentments hardened into identity. Then the door opened and the lawyers came back in, carrying the next wave. Highway Patrol had seized relevant county records. The Attorney General's office was considering a public integrity task force. Mercer had denied wrongdoing and framed the allegations as a desperate smokescreen by a homicide suspect's family. Commissioner Hal Ross had suddenly become unavailable for comment. The town was splitting in real time. Church ladies, contractors, deputies, former county employees, old political enemies, everyone had a memory, or a suspicion, or a defense. The blast zone was widening exactly as Tyler had warned. And buried under all of it, at the center where he could never stop feeling it, was Owen Hartley on hot asphalt under a dead neon sign. By late afternoon, the county felt like it had been split open with an axe. From the consultation room, Tyler could hear layers of the collapse happening at once. Phones, doors, snatches of argument. The lawyer stepped out to take calls, and Lila stayed with him in the silence that followed. She was scrolling through messages on her phone with the blank stare of someone who had received too many versions of the same disaster. What are they saying? Tyler asked. Lila gave a humorless laugh. That depends who you mean by they. She held up the screen. Half the town says Dad was framed and Owen died trying to expose it. The other half says you're a killer hiding behind conspiracy nonsense. And then there's the fun middle group. What do they say? That everybody probably did something wrong. Tyler leaned back in the chair. That one might be the closest. Lila put the phone down. Missus, Harlan says she's praying for us. Coach Everett says he always knew Mercer was dirty. That's convenient, since he used to drink with him every Friday. Reverend Pike says if we need anything, we should ask, which means casseroles, not actual help. Tyler nodded. He could see it all without leaving the room, the speed with which people rearranged their morals once the tide shifted. Nora? He asked. Alive, Lila said. Busy. Apparently 3 satellite trucks are already headed this way. Tyler rubbed his face. Redwater always wanted to be on the map. Not like this. The door opened and one of the attorneys, Melissa Grant from Columbia, came back in with a legal pad and a fresh expression of focused urgency. The Highway Patrol wants your formal statement before Mercer has another hour to shape this, she said. You will answer what we've discussed. No speeches. No speculation unless asked. No filling dead air. Tyler gave a small nod. Melissa looked at Lila. You too. If anyone else questions you, you wait for counsel. Lila crossed her arms. I'm not the one who ran from a body. Melissa did not blink. No, you're the one local law enforcement may decide to squeeze because they can't control the headline anymore. Lila's face tightened. Great. That wasn't sarcasm, Melissa said. You're useful to them now. Tyler watched his sister absorb that. It did not surprise her. That was the worst part. They moved him to a larger interview room an hour later, one with recording equipment and 2 investigators in plain clothes from the Highway Patrol Division that handled public corruption and officer-involved misconduct. One was a broad-shouldered woman in her 50s named Lieutenant Sandra Keene. The other was a younger investigator named Miles Donnelly, whose eyes had the permanent tiredness of someone who expected lies and still hated hearing them. Melissa sat beside Tyler. A local public defender sat in the back. The recorder clicked on. Tyler told the story again, but this time, the shape was less about survival and more about sequence. Keene stopped him often. What exact words did Deputy Hartley use before you grabbed the weapon? How many feet apart were you? Did he identify anything he had discovered about Sheriff Mercer? What had your father told you before that night? Why did you flee? That question sat on the table longer than the others. Tyler answered it anyway. Because I knew I'd killed him, and because I thought if I was taken in right there, Mercer would bury whatever Owen had found before anybody outside his office saw it. Keene watched him carefully. And because you were guilty. Tyler nodded. Yes. Miles wrote something down. Keene asked. When did you realize Deputy Hartley may have been warning you, not threatening your father? Tyler swallowed. After I read his statement. Keene was quiet for a second. How do you live with that? Melissa shifted slightly, but Tyler answered before she could object. I don't know yet. When the interview ended, evening light had turned gold through the hallway windows. Melissa closed her notebook and said, They believe enough to move, which is not the same as believing all of it. Tyler stood slowly. The cuff chain at his waist rattled. What happens now? Now, she said. Your life gets divided into parallel tragedies. Tyler gave her a tired look. You moonlight as a poet? No, Melissa said. I just hate sugarcoating math. There's the corruption case. And there's Owen. One does not erase the other. Best outcome. The public understands that. Worst outcome. Everyone picks the half of the story that flatters their politics. Tyler nodded. That sounds about right. Melissa lowered her voice. There's something else. Mercer's been asked to step aside pending review. He has not been arrested. But Carla Ruiz gave a preliminary statement that he conducted an unrecorded interview with you and referenced your sister before formal counsel was present. Tyler stared at her. Carla did that? Seems she doesn't enjoy being used as scenery. That gave him a strange, painful flicker of hope. Not the clean kind. Just the knowledge that Owen had not been as alone as his death made it feel. At dusk, Lila was allowed 5 minutes with him before he was transferred to a temporary holding cell under state supervision at a regional facility outside the county. She stood on the other side of a narrow table in a side room and looked at him for a long moment before sitting down. Dad collapsed, she said. Tyler felt all the air leave him. When? An hour ago. Ambulance took him to St. Mary's. Tyler gripped the edge of the chair. He's alive? Lila's voice broke slightly on the word. For now. Tyler looked toward the door, as if he could tear through it by force. I need to see him. Melissa's trying, Lila said. They're arguing about medical transport, supervision, all of it. Tyler laughed once, a hard, broken sound. Of course they are. Lila reached across the table and touched his hand, where the chain allowed it. He was awake in the ambulance. He asked if you'd talked. To the investigators? She nodded. I said yes. Tyler stared down at their hands. What did he say? Lila's eyes filled. He said, Good. Now he has to learn how to keep breathing. Tyler shut his eyes. The room blurred at the edges. He always did know how to make comfort sound like an insult. That was his brand. They sat in silence for a few seconds, both of them trying not to break in the tiny amount of time they'd been given. Finally, Lila said, I need to tell you something before this gets bigger. Tyler looked up. Her face had that same guarded look it used to get when they were younger, and she had decided honesty was going to hurt, but lying would hurt worse. When Mom got sick, she said, there were nights Dad would drive around for hours. I thought he was avoiding the house. I hated him for it. A year later, after she died, I found out he'd been meeting with creditors and begging them not to come after the property. He didn't want us to know how bad it was. Tyler listened without speaking. Lila went on. I spent a long time building a version of him in my head that made it easier to be angry. Maybe because anger was simpler than helplessness. She looked at him directly. You do that too? Tyler nodded once. Yeah. So don't do it now. Not with him, and not with yourself either. Tell the truth. Answer for what you did. But don't start writing fake motives onto every bad thing that ever happened just because guilt likes patterns. Tyler, let that sit. He thought about his father's warning not to turn any of this into redemption, and felt the same brutal precision in Lila's voice now. They had both learned from the same man, even if it took disaster to make it visible. You really should have been the one in charge of this family, he said. She shook her head. No, I just learned how to survive people falling apart. Melissa got the clearance near 9 o'clock. Under guard, in waist, chain, and cuffs, Tyler was taken by state transport to St. Mary's Regional Hospital in Columbia. The drive took more than an hour. He spent all of it staring out through reinforced glass at highway lights, smearing across the dark, trying to prepare for the possibility that he would arrive too late. Nothing worked. Every memory of his father came back jagged and unsorted. The smell of sawdust on work shirts. The sound of him singing off-key in the garage. The way he had stood motionless at Mom's grave after everyone else left. Not because he didn't feel enough to move, but because he felt too much to perform it. At the hospital, 2 troopers escorted Tyler through a side entrance and up to the oncology floor. Melissa met them there, along with Lila and Nora Whitfield, who looked like she had been awake for 3 straight years. Tyler blinked at her. You covering this or haunting it? Nora gave a small shrug. Both. Your father asked for me. Tyler frowned. Why? Nora's expression shifted. Because he wanted to make sure the story didn't become about the wrong dead man. Tyler stopped walking for a second. Then one of the troopers gently urged him forward. His father's room was at the end of the hall, lit by the low blue glow of monitors. The old man looked smaller than Tyler had ever seen him. Not weak, reduced, as if illness had carved away everything non-essential and left only the hard shape of him underneath. Oxygen hissed softly at his nose. His eyes opened when Tyler entered, and the first thing he said was, "Well, you look terrible." Tyler laughed through the ache in his throat. "Good to see you too." One of the troopers stayed by the door. Lila and Melissa remained outside. Nora did too. Tyler was allowed a chair by the bedside, chain still around his waist, cuffs replaced with one wrist secured to a transport ring. The indignity of it might have angered him in any other circumstance. Here it felt almost abstract. His father noticed anyway. "You should complain," he said. "I've been told I'm not charming enough for special treatment." The old man nodded faintly. "That's true." They looked at each other in the dim room, and for a moment Tyler was not a defendant, or a suspect, or a headline. He was just a son who had done something terrible, and still wanted one impossible thing from his father before the end. "I'm sorry," Tyler said. He had not planned to start there. The words simply arrived. "I know," his father replied. Tyler swallowed hard. "I should have listened to him. Yes. I should have stayed. Yes. I should have come home more." His father's eyes sharpened. "That one's vanity." Tyler stared at him. The old man took a thin breath. "You think death means everybody gets poetic and says the truest sentence at last. Most of the time, it just means people panic and dump their guilt at the foot of the bed like that's a gift." Tyler almost smiled, despite the tears pressing behind his eyes. "So I'm doing it wrong. You're doing it like a son." His father shifted slightly, grimacing. "Listen to me. I did hide things from you. I lied by omission. I made myself the wall because I thought that was my job. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But none of that put the gun in your hand. Own what is yours. Not mine. Not Mercer's. Not this town's appetite for picking clean bones." Tyler looked down. "I don't know how to hold all of it." "You don't," his father said. "You carry it badly for a long time." The monitor beeped steadily between them. Tyler wiped at his face with his free hand, embarrassed by the tears and too tired to hide them well. "They're going after Mercer," he said. "Maybe Ross, too." Carla talked. The old man gave a faint smile. "Good. Nora's outside." "I know. Why'd you ask for her?" His father was quiet for a second. "Because Owen deserves a witness who can't be bullied at the funeral." Tyler stared. "You think Mercer would show?" "I think men like Mercer always show. They mistake visibility for innocence." Tyler sat with that. Then, because there was no point saving the worst question, he asked, "Do you think Owen hated me in the end?" His father turned his head and looked at him with an almost unbearable steadiness. "No," he said. "I think he was trying to reach you. There's a difference." Tyler's breath caught. He had not realized until that second how badly he needed someone to say it aloud, not to absolve him, but to keep the memory from curdling into something even more merciless than it already was. "That doesn't help enough," he whispered. "Nothing will," his father said. "That's not failure. That's consequence." Near midnight, after the nurses came and went and the troopers exchanged shifts, the old man drifted in and out. Tyler stayed there as long as they allowed, saying little. Once, in the space between waking and sleep, his father said, "Take care of your sister when she'll let you." Tyler answered, "That narrows the schedule." His father smiled without opening his eyes. It was the last full expression Tyler saw on his face. He died at 2:14 the morning while Tyler was back in transport, halfway to the regional jail. Lila called Melissa, and Melissa told Tyler when they stopped for intake. He stood in a cinderblock hallway with a deputy holding a clipboard and felt the world become strangely quiet. Not softer, just quieter. Like one frequency had disappeared permanently, and the air had to relearn how to fill itself. "Do you need a minute?" Melissa asked over the phone. Tyler thought about it. "No," he said finally. "I need about 10 years. Since that's not on offer, a minute won't do much." The next days moved with the ugly efficiency of systems. Tyler was charged with second-degree involuntary manslaughter and unlawful flight. Melissa thought the facts supported a stronger plea argument later if he kept telling the truth, and if the corruption case continued corroborating the context. None of that changed the booking photo. None of that changed Owen's funeral notices, which were posted in the same local feeds, now carrying drone shots of the courthouse and breathless speculation about Mercer. Sheriff Daniel Mercer was suspended 48 hours after Tyler's arraignment when a second county employee came forward about bid manipulation, and a retired insurance clerk identified transfers linked to one of the subcontractor shell companies. Commissioner Hal Ross resigned for health reasons before investigators served his office. Carla Ruiz was placed on administrative leave after accusing Mercer of ordering selective evidence handling in prior cases. The town called her brave and disloyal in equal measure. Nora kept reporting like someone walking through a fire with both hands full. Lila arranged their father's funeral and refused 3 different church ladies who offered to handle the details as if grief were a potluck sign-up sheet. Through Melissa, Tyler got 2 things he did not expect: permission to attend his father's graveside service in restraints under heavy supervision, and, on the morning before that service, a message from Owen Hartley's mother requesting to see him. Melissa read the note twice before handing it over, as if it might burn differently in Tyler's hands. He stared at the single sentence written in careful blue ink: "I need to hear your voice before I decide whether to hate it forever." The meeting took place in a private room at the county annex under watch from outside the door. Mrs. Hartley was smaller than Tyler remembered, with silver hair pinned neatly back and the same unwavering eyes Owen had carried. She sat across from him and did not offer her hand. Tyler did not expect her to. "I'm not here for your apology," she said at once. "Then I won't insult you with one," Tyler replied. She looked almost surprised by that. "Good." She folded her hands. "Tell me the exact truth of my son's last minute." Tyler did. No legal framing. No rhetorical self-defense. He told her Owen had tried to de-escalate. He told her he himself was frantic and stupid and wrong. He told her Owen had been speaking when the gun went off. He did not mention any noble context until she asked directly whether Owen had really been investigating Mercer. Then Tyler told her that too. When he finished, Mrs. Hartley sat very still. There was no visible softening in her. That was not why she had come. "He always did think he could talk people down from cliffs," she said quietly. "Sometimes he was right." Tyler looked at the table. "Not this time." She inhaled slowly. "No." A long silence followed. Then she asked, "Did he die afraid?" Tyler forced himself to meet her eyes. "I don't think so. It was fast." She closed her eyes and nodded once. When she opened them again, there were tears there, but her voice stayed level. "I believe you regret it." Tyler said nothing. "That is not forgiveness," she added. "I know. And if this corruption mess makes half the county call you a tragic fool instead of what you are, I will correct them." Tyler took that like a blow, because it was meant as one, and because it was true. "You should," he said. Mrs. Hartley stood. At the door she paused. "My son chose his work. You chose your panic. Both are real. Do not spend the rest of your life trying to make one cancel the other." Then she left him alone, with the sound of the latch clicking shut. At his father's graveside service, the sky hung low and white over the cemetery outside Redwater. Spring had not fully arrived yet. The ground looked tired. Tyler stood in county transport restraints between 2 deputies, while Lila, Nora, Melissa, a few neighbors, and more relatives than he had expected, gathered around the casket. Some people stared at him openly. Some looked away as if eye contact itself might become endorsement. Nora stood back with no notebook in hand for once. Carla Ruiz appeared at the edge of the group in plain clothes, face unreadable. And, because his father had predicted it perfectly, Daniel Mercer came too. No badge on his belt now. No official authority attached. Only the posture of a man who still believed being present could distort the truth in his favor. Lila saw him first and went rigid. Tyler felt it ripple through the group before he turned his head. Mercer stood near the cemetery gate with his hands in his coat pockets, not approaching, not apologizing, simply occupying space. Tyler watched him through the whole service. Through the prayer, through the short eulogy by Reverend Pike, who wisely kept his language plain and did not attempt to redeem the county. Through the lowering of the casket, through Lila's silent tears, Mercer stayed where he was until the end. Then he began to turn away. Tyler did not think. He stepped forward against the deputy's grip and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You don't get to come here clean." The cemetery went silent. Mercer stopped. He looked back at Tyler, and for a second all the masks were gone. Not because Tyler had won anything, because public shame, even still unproved in court, had finally touched him in the one language men like Mercer understood. Mercer said nothing. He just turned and walked back toward the gate, under the eyes of the town he had counted on for decades. It was not justice. It was not enough. It was only a fracture in the old performance. After the service, Lila was allowed one brief embrace before the deputies moved Tyler back to transport. She held him hard, then pulled away and put both hands on his face the way their mother used to when they were kids. "I don't know what happens now," she said. Tyler nodded. "Me neither." "Then don't make promises." He almost smiled. Wasn't planning to. Her mouth trembled. "Good." Back in the van, Tyler watched the cemetery recede through the wire-screened window. The county roads stretched ahead in gray ribbons through farmland and bare trees. Somewhere behind him, investigations would continue. Nora would keep publishing. Carla would keep talking or pay for it if she did. Mercer might be indicted, or might wriggle, or might spend months trying to drag everyone else down with him. Leela would go home to a house that held too much absence. Owen Hartley would stay dead. Their father would stay dead. None of the headlines could reverse that. None of Tyler's future honesty would become virtue by accumulation. The van turned onto the highway toward the regional facility, and Tyler rested his head against the cool metal wall. He thought about Owen's note again, the line about the blast zone. He understood it differently now. A blast zone was not just destruction. It was also the map people were left to read afterward, the outline of what had been closest to the center, the proof that force had moved through a place and changed every life that stood near it. Tyler did not know what kind of man he would be after prison, after court, after the town settled on whatever version of him it needed. He only knew the work ahead would not be noble, and would not feel like healing for a very long time. The first clean thing he had left was the refusal to lie about any of it. So when the deputy in the front seat glanced back and asked, not unkindly, "You doing okay?" Tyler looked out at the road, at the county line passing under them, and answered with the only truth that still fit. "No," he said, "but I'm here."